This trade deadline edition of Baseball Money is Fake on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon.
Welcome to Baseball Money is Fake, fantasy baseball podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is trade deadline day, and boy, was it an uneventful one if you are a Mariners fan, as I am. I being Blake Meyer, as always, joined by my man Ryan Gilbert. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing all right, but it's been a bit of an up and down day for me. But this past hour of activity here just been wild. Kind of ever since the Verlander deal happened, just been like I kind of kicked off everything else. Now we've seen trades like we were talking before the show. This trade happened. This trade happened. Now this trades we haven't even mentioned yet. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Same, because I mean there was a lot of action today. Not necessarily the biggest moves in the world that a lot of people were hoping were going to happen. Teoscar Hernandez still plays for the Seattle Mariners. I'm very bitter, so these are just going to be sprinkled in throughout the episode. But yeah, I mean, there was some more bigger moves made in the previous couple days. I guess the first one we can talk about from today is probably the most prominent. Would be Justin Verlander going from the Mets back to the Houston Astros, who he played for last year, where he won the Cy Young and was just an absolute force. In my opinion, I think this does boost his value moving forward, just because obviously Astros are way better. But how much higher do you think this boosts him in your starter rankings moving forward now that he's moved from New York to Houston?
Yeah, as you said, it definitely increases his value. Looking at his last few starts, like he's been pitching really well. He's been Justin Verlander when he's been able to take the ball, and now going back to Houston, where he just won the Cy Young, won the World Series, very comfortable there. I would imagine. I imagine it's going to be a fantastic last 2 months of the season for Verlander. So I can't imagine anyone is going to want to be trading him. But if you do have him, it definitely helps your second half here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, he was already, I don't know if I could say he was a top 10 pitcher so far this year. He was good, obviously. He's been good as of late. The strikeout stuff doesn't seem to quite be there like it was last year, but he's still been a good pitcher. And I think this puts him as a top 10 pitcher for the rest of the way. Houston's just so good. He's still Verlander. And pitching has been so volatile this year. A lot of the players that we thought were going to be really good just haven't been. Although some guys like Sandy Alcantara have really, really picked it up in the last 5 or 6 starts. Yeah. So those guys are making a comeback. But I still think this plants Verlander pretty solidly in that top 10 moving forward.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, he's 13 right now on the Fantasy Pros expert consensus. Ahead of him is Corbin Burns, Max Scherzer, and then Shane McClanahan is 10. Yeah, he might get up there. Nola's 7. I think that's too high. Wheeler's 8. Gallen 9. So yeah, he's up there with those guys. And then yeah, Max Scherzer was the other big trade from the Mets. The Mets just completely selling off everything. And apparently today, I'm not sure if you saw it on Twitter. It was Rosenthal. Somebody had an article where Verlander or Scherzer talked to the Mets front office. They were like, "Yeah, we're not trying to compete until 2025, 2026." And he was like, "All right, yeah, I'm done then." So I don't know if this is like a smoke screen, and then they're going to go like hard for Ohtani, but that's just a weird thing to make. I don't know if there's a huge free agent class that time, but yeah, switching over to Scherzer, also going to the AL West. I mean, the Verlander trade makes more sense when you think about the fact that the AL West, besides Houston, loaded up. Scherzer or Texas got Scherzer and Montgomery. I think got someone else too. Angels got Giolito. Angels got TJ Crone, Randall Grichuk. Angels got a bunch of guys. So AL West is going to be tough, unfortunately, for the Mariners fans, kind of falling out of it there without even selling many people. So, but yeah, Scherzer, I imagine he has to kind of go up in your ranks as well.
Just ever so slightly, only because he might win a few more games. My issue with Scherzer is he's kind of notoriously, he's a fly ball pitcher. He gives up a lot of home runs. Mets is a pretty good pitcher's park. It's not the best pitcher's park, but it's a pretty good pitcher's park. And out in Texas, they do give up a lot more home runs out there, and he's given up almost 2 home runs per 9 already. So I got to kind of evaluate how that's going to affect him for the rest of the year, because if he's going to give up 2.5 home runs per game the rest of the year, he's playing against I mean, no offense to the Phillies, Atlanta's pretty good, but I think overall he's playing against better lineups, like top to bottom, than he was on the Mets. So
I don't know about that.
We made a lot of the Angels are really good.
Maybe when Trout comes back, they did add Crone and Grichuk. I guess Texas is it Texas. I mean, he's pitching for Texas. Houston's a great lineup. Yeah, AL West is tough.
So yeah,
but yeah,
we'll have to see. But
the home run ballpark factor on a Baseball Savant has Globe Life Field the 9th most home run friendly, while the Mets were the 19th. So the Mets were the 13th most pitcher friendly for home runs. So yeah, that could be a factor for him, and that has been something where he's just given up a ton of home runs this year. 23 home runs in 19 starts. Only give up 13 home runs in 23 starts last year, but change of scenery, change of going to a team that's actually in contention, maybe he can figure something out.
Yeah, I do think the strikeouts for him may kind of even out his value with the home runs, though, because he's still a good strikeout guy. Still like 10.5 Ks per 9, which is good. And Oakland strikes out a lot. Seattle strikes out a lot. For as good as the Angels lineup is, they actually still strike out quite a bit too. So I think there may be a lot more room for some strikeout numbers out here. So, I mean, if he bumps that up to even like 11.5 Ks per 9 out here, I think you can be okay with the 2 home runs.
Yeah, I think that's not probably not going to be too problematic. Looking at a few other trades that just happened. Padres acquired closer Scott Barlow from the Royals. I saw there was a new Royals guy got to save Carlos Hernandez. Got his first save of the year on the 30th, so maybe he's going to be the guy in Kansas City. Jack Flaherty went to Baltimore. I think Ryan Yarbrough went to the Dodgers from KC. I think that's somebody who, if you know me, you know my deep league streaming articles on our Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com. He's one that's not rostered in a lot of spots, and he should be in line for a lot more wins. He's been pitching surprisingly well, back-to-back quality starts, back-to-back wins for Kansas City. So going to a team like the Dodgers is definitely going to be help his value.
Oh yeah, going to a lot of a lot of players going to a team like the Dodgers would help their value. I think the atmosphere there, whatever it is, it just makes people play. But even David Peralta turned himself into a fantasy relevant outfield option in Los Angeles this year. But the thing that caught me off guard was, I mean, another would have been kind of a pretty blockbuster-ish trade. Eduardo Rodriguez turned down going to play for the Dodgers, which is wild. I don't understand why he would do that.
From what I read, apparently he took some sort of leave of absence last year due to some family or personal issue. So maybe he has something going on there where, maybe 2 months, even 2 or 3 months away from his family or from whatever's going on is going to be too much for him. It does look like he wanted to play on the East Coast, if anything. You know what? Maybe he has a lot going on and just wants to, finish out the year in Detroit, see if he can, feel good again, because he did miss most of the year. He's been up and down kind of. So yeah, maybe he can just, finish it out. I'm not sure what his contract situation is, but I think he has an opt out, and he could become a free agent and, see where things go there. But yeah, I mean, people don't think about that when they think about, why would you block a trade to one of the best teams in the league? But there's baseball players are humans too, even if it's only a few months.
It could be one of those scenarios where it's like, do you want to be one of the best players on a not very good team, or do you want to be like a fourth or fifth starter on a team contending for the World Series? He might just like playing in that division. I think it's the weakest division in baseball all around. And so he has good matchups for him every every game out. So he may just want to ride out, like you said, his contract, just pitching against lesser competition and making his numbers look better and just trying to get a fat payday based off those numbers the next chance that he gets.
Yeah. And make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everything there. Leave us a 5-star rating and review for Baseball Money is Fake. You can go to sg.pn/fake-baseball. Follow us on Twitter as well. Make sure you get in the Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com. Of course, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network Discord as well, sg.pn/discord. A lot of good conversation going on in there. And make sure you check out the new SGP Patreon. Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon is perfect for the diehard DGen. Sign up for the Patreon to get access to exclusive contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize, plus a monthly SGP Stories podcast, an ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades of being a DGens. There's even a Discord channel just for patrons. The Sports Gambling Podcast has and always will give out all their picks for free. The Patreon is just a great way to support the network and fight back against corporate gambling. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. All right, kind of jumping all over a bit here in this show, but a bunch of different trades being made. But one team that's been involved in a lot of them, surprisingly, is the Miami Marlins. They went out and traded for Jake Burger from the White Sox, and then they traded for Josh Bell. They traded away Gene Segura and somebody else for him. They also traded away Garrett Cooper to San Diego, I believe. So looks like Josh Bell could be their starting first baseman. Jake Burger could possibly slot in there at third base. What do you think about those guys? I know Burger has surprisingly hit 25 home runs this year, but his splits are kind of weird. And Josh Bell just has not done anything despite us kind of talking him up during the offseason.
I will say, as of late, Josh Bell has been better. I don't think this helps either of them. Maybe Josh Bell just needed a change of scenery, which could boost him up a little bit. But I mean, he's a switch hitter, so ballpark factor doesn't play that much into account when you're a switch hitter because you can you're hitting from both sides of the plate. The one that I'm really disappointed fantasy value wise is Jake Burger. He's someone that I've been on for feels like 2 months now for waiver wires because he was just a steal. Like you said, 25 home runs. The problem is he hit 17 home runs at home in Chicago and only 8 on the road. And he was hitting 171 on the road away from Chicago. He goes out to Miami, which is Chicago is a very, very home run friendly park. I think their park factor for right-handed hitters was like 111.
They're fifth overall at 111.
Yeah, and like 100 is league average, so they're 11% better. And was it Miami's at like an 86?
82, fifth worst.
Oh,
or fourth worst when you don't include the London Stadium. Yeah.
So that's now Jake Burger's home park, which is not ideal. He's going up against arguably better pitching now as well. He's got to face the Phillies. He's got to face Atlanta. He's got to face.
That's it.
I mean, I'd say the Mets, but those two teams alone, it's just not an ideal setup for Jake Burger. So I think he becomes somebody that before even playing a game, I think it's pretty safe. He could end up back on waivers if you have him on your roster, just because I don't have a lot of hope for him moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Burger, he kills left-handed pitching. He was great at home. And now he's going somewhere where he's not going to be at a good home run park. I mean, you mentioned his home run splits, his OPS splits were 990 at home, 618 away, batting average 257 opposed to 171. So, yeah, I think Jake Burger is definitely going to be somebody that maybe people are like, oh, now he's going to Miami. Maybe he's going to get maybe that'll happen. He'll get rejuvenated a little bit, but could definitely be somebody who the Marlins trade for, maybe think can be a starting third baseman, and then ends up kind of not panning out there. Just that's just who Jake Burger has been in his career. He's taken advantage of a good hitter's park this year. Maybe that can continue, but I don't have high hopes.
One person I want to see if you have high hopes for, though, the Phillies made a trade. You guys made bigger moves than we did.
Traded for two-way American League All-Star. Drum roll, please. From the what was it? Oh, he's on Tigers now. Former Los Angeles Angel as well, Michael Lorenzen. Michael Lorenzen has been better than I thought this year. 3.58 ERA. He's been kind of up and down. Last start, 7 innings, 7 shutout innings against Milwaukee, 3 strikeouts. I like this. I like this move for the Phillies. I like it more for real life Phillies baseball than fantasy baseball, but obviously going from the Tigers to the Phillies is a much improvement for possibility of getting wins. It also, I think, increases the value of the guys in that rotation. Aaron Nola has done a lot better on more than 5 days rest. I think Zach Wheeler has as well. I think more teams should look at doing 6-man rotations. That's probably what the Phillies are going to do with Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Taijuan Walker. Christopher Sanchez had a no-hitter in his last start in Pittsburgh through like 5 or 6 innings. Now they add Michael Lorenzen to that. That gives them 6 quality starters. Lorenzen has pitched out of the bullpen before, so if he has to go there in the playoffs, that's fine. Yeah, I think he's somebody rostered in 46% of Yahoo leagues. Probably higher than I would have thought already, but yeah, I think that's only going to go up with his trade to Philadelphia.
Good hair guy too, which
great hair guy. Apparently, he has great biceps too, according to Brandon Marsh. It was another great hair guy.
Yeah, great hair, great biceps. That's an all-star combo. And Brandon Marsh being and pairing them together, that's like when we had Jake Fraley back in the day in Seattle, just the hair flowing, and Taylor Motter. Just excellent hair in the outfield. But Lorenzen, I like him because he has a very hard to hit fastball. It has like a batting average against under 200, decent whiff rate. He throws 7 pitches, which is kind of wild. Not many people throw 7 pitches nowadays. You got guys like Munoz who throw 2. Spencer Strider throws like 3. He throws 7. The only thing that worries me a bit is kind of like what we talked about with Eduardo Rodriguez. Erod staying there so he can face the worst competition. Lorenzen looked above average in the worst division in baseball. So how is he going to look when he's now part of the NL East, having to face Atlanta and face those better rosters? Even Miami's got a good roster.
Yeah,
the Mets Miami may have the best lineup. Yeah,
no, Philly still have it.
And Miami, no, not. The best lineup in in the Tigers division in the Central. Like the Marlins lineup would probably be the best lineup in that division. So I'm curious to see how it works out for him. I've rostered him a few times this year. He's been one of those guys for me that I couldn't recommend him being like a full-time roster guy, but he was a little better than a streaming option. He was one of those guys that you pick up and you roster for 3 or 4 starts, and then you drop him to go with like, oh, this dude has a really good streaming option. And then you pick Lorenzen up a week later. He's been one of those guys for me. This knocks him down a peg. If he's on your roster, I think I'm okay starting Lorenzen in his next start to see how it goes. But if Lorenzen doesn't have a great start, I'm okay if you just feel free to drop him.
Yeah, it looks like he's scheduled to start on Thursday down there in Miami. And yeah, Lorenzen has been very hit or miss this season. He's allowed 5 earned runs or more in 6 starts, but he's also allowed no earned runs in 6 starts. And he's allowed 1 earned run in 4 other starts. So 10 of his 18 starts have been 1 earned run or fewer, including against, not horrible teams. The Mets, Cleveland, White Sox, Royals, Orioles. Yeah, okay, pretty bad teams. He's pitched against. Royals a few times, Oakland, Seattle, White Sox twice, and he got lit up by San Fran, Arizona, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Kansas City, and Colorado. So very hit or miss. Better than acquiring Thor at last year's deadline, though. He's a much better acquisition for the Phillies than Noah Syndergaard was. So yeah, I'm overall happy with that move.
Oh, it looks like Gene Segura is going to be released by the Guardians, so he's just going to be a free agent now.
Bring him back, Phillies. Bring him back. Has he just fallen off? Has he just not been good?
I think he's been okay. He hasn't been anything crazy. I think age is getting to him a little bit, though.
Hitting 219, on base 277, slugging 279. Yeah, bring him back for a bench bat, a vibes guy. I love Gene.
All right, so another trade. I guess we should discuss the Angels trades a little bit because like we had the episode yesterday.
We haven't touched them at all.
Yeah, we purposely stayed away from a lot of the trades that have happened so that we could keep it for this. First of all, Ronaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito now pitch for the Los Angeles Angels. Giolito has already made a start for the Angels. Giolito screamed guy that needs a fresh start to me over his last like year and a half, 2 years. This may be the place that gives him that fresh start. But to be fair, a lot of the AL West got better.
Yeah.
Seattle didn't get worse. So Seattle, we stayed the same. I say we because I obviously play for the team. Oakland is just Oakland, but Houston got better. Texas got better. And the Angels got better. So it's going to be interesting because he's coming from that same division we were just talking about with like Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen. So how much of a boost do you think Giolito gets playing for the Angels, or like what kind of outlook do you have for him moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if it improves or decreases it that much. I think it's still very much touch and go, like you were talking about with Lorenzen. Obviously, Giolito is a better pitcher than Michael Lorenzen. He's rostered in 91% of leagues. You're not going to drop him, but yeah, that first start at Toronto, at Atlanta is his next start tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon. So that's not two good starts there for him. Two good matchups out of the gate. I still think he has the stuff to be a solid number 2, number 3 pitcher for a team, and it could be a solid number 3, number 4 pitcher for a fantasy team. So yeah, I don't love Giolito. I don't hate him. It doesn't really change my opinion on him one way or the other.
Hey, he's got a good slider and changeup, which is cool. Slider's got a 36% whiff rate, changeup almost a 31% whiff rate. The biggest thing for him was his fastball. Seems to be hittable. I mean, this year it's at a 249 expected batting average, which is right around what it was last year, which isn't terrible. He just seems to give up a ton of big hits off that. His expected slugging is 455. For me, he's probably just shooting off the hip. I think Giolito is probably a top 60 starter for me still moving forward. But I'd say probably safely between 50 and 60. I don't think Giolito's a top 50 starter for me moving forward. I think maybe 56, 57. I'd have to see who else I have in that range. But there's value there, but I think your expectations need to be tempered a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going off the Fantasy Pros expert consensus rest of the season. He's at 35. Guys down there at 60. 60 is Ranger Suarez. So he's better than Ranger Suarez. He's better than Heaney. He's better than Merrill Kelly. Better than Tyler
Merrill
Wells,
Kelly's
who got
been
sent
really
down.
good.
He's better than Bailey Ober, John Gray, maybe not. Reed Detmers or Lucas Giolito. Reed Detmers has been good recently, striking out guys.
I'd call him I mean, I hate to say this. I'd call him a wash. There's going to be people that don't like that, but I don't.
Been great in the second half.
Yeah, I don't objectively think one is better than the other. I think that's probably. I think Reed Detmer's ceiling is Lucas Giolito, and I think Lucas Giolito is probably right now what he's going to be. So, yeah, maybe 45 to 50 range for Giolito. Somewhere around there. 35 or whatever you said is too high. I'd have to see what I have him at on mine. I haven't updated my pitcher rankings in about a month. So
it says the worst. It says the worst he's ranked is 42. So that might be you. The best is 35. The worst is 42.
that could very well be me.
Yeah. Before we get over to the hitters here, we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. NFL season's right around the corner, and Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props, and it's available in a ton of markets. Plus, plenty of opportunities to win their daily MLB contests. And, of course, make sure to enter Best Ball Mania 4, where first place gets $3 million. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. And the other Angels big trade that probably will impact their fantasy value a bit more, they acquired Randall Grichuk and CJ Cron from the Rockies. Obviously, they're not going to be playing at Coors Field anymore, but CJ Cron will be hitting right around Ohtani. He's hitting 3. Ohtani's leading off or hitting second tonight. Grichuk's down there, 6'7", around Moniak, Renfroe, Moustakas is in that lineup. Better lineup, worse ballpark. What do you make of Cron or Grichuk now?
Man, I think Cron takes a pretty significant ding because
ding.
yeah, I mean he's batting around Ohtani, which is cool, but the problem is we always talk about that Coors Field factor for players. It's honestly hasn't been this evident in a player in a long time. He hit 214 away from Coors Field last year. He hit 235 away from Coors in 2021. He hit like 326 at Coors Field in 2021. It's like very, very significant differences. I think he's batting 20 points lower on the road this year away from Coors Field. And while that normally wouldn't be like a crazy thing, like, oh, he's batting 300 away rather than 320 away, the difference in that is huge. Like last year, he hit 217 away from Coors Field, and his OPS was like 100 points lower. That's when it becomes a problem, when his away stats become that of a player that's not that good fantasy-wise. He now becomes like a 20 home run for the year type of player that's going to hit 240, which is very, very underwhelming, especially at first base, where first base isn't loaded, but first base has enough people that you don't have to like jump on a guy that's going to hit only 20 home runs and bat 240. CJ Cron becomes very average at this point for me. Randall Grichuk has multi-position eligibility, if I remember correctly, which helps.
Let me just hop in on Cron.
Okay.
I'm the complete opposite of you. I think this definitely increases his value. If anything, obviously the Coors Field factor is known, but he has more home runs away than at home, 6 in 27 games, opposed to 5 in 30 games at home. Yeah, batting average is 278 opposed to 238. Still hitting close to 260 on the year. Still, 11 home runs and 200 at bats. On pace for 25 home runs. He's hit at other places before. He started his career with the Angels, 30 home runs in Tampa, 25 with the Twins before going to the Rockies. And I think batting behind Shohei Ohtani, who's going to get intentionally walked a ton, especially once Mike Trout comes back, it's going to be Trout, probably a Trout. There, they could keep Rafigo up there, or they keep him lead off, but they're going to have Trout, Ohtani, Cron, somewhere in that order. Moniak can also, catch fire. I think Cron is going to have his RBIs will go up a ton, and as long as he can, take advantage of that opportunity and convert some of those chances, I think this definitely helps his value.
Do you think it helps Grichuk as well?
I do. Grichuk was somebody I was looking at even before the trade happened. I thought he was going to be worth picking up either way. I believe he has 3 home runs so far since July 28th, which is 1 home run in his Angels debut in Atlanta last night. Yeah, Grichuk he's hitting 307. He has power, 2 stolen bases. I'm not going to get too much speed, but yeah, Grichuk I think is overlooked by a lot of people because he is in that Coors Field and not performing too well. But he was great with St. Louis, great with Toronto earlier in his career, and I think giving him a lineup like that is just going to help him too.
Yeah, I do think it helps Grichuk fairly significantly. Especially he is a guy that's kind of been an outfield 3, outfield 4 type of guy this season. Like good numbers, not crazy numbers, but good. He's hitting over 300. He's got 9 home runs on the year. But I love him in points leagues especially. He's got a strikeout rate like 20%, 20.4%, somewhere right around there, which is good. Like in a points league, if you can get guys under 25% strikeout rate, that's beneficial. He doesn't walk the most, but he's got a walk rate like 7%. So there's some value there. And I think the way he plays bodes well to playing in Los Angeles. He hits a lot of line drives, and that is a great line drive hitter's park. And so hitting around guys like Ohtani, Trout when Trout comes back, Moniak, all of those guys is going to only boost up his hell, even if it's just scoring runs, his counting stats are going to go up pretty significantly, I think. And he now, like, he's solidified as an outfielder 3 for me moving forward, where he was like kind of a fringe guy before. He's an outfield 3 with maybe very back end outfield 2 value, depending on league size, league type, and all of that. I love Randall Grichuk moving forward.
Yeah, and here is a look at Randall Grichuk's Baseball Savant page. It's fairly red. A good expected batting average here, 83rd percentile. Exit velocity, middle. Barrel rate kind of low. However, looking at CJ Crone here is very red. Barrel rate is 94th percentile. Expected batting average 83rd. Expected slugging 90th. Average exit velo is down, but he has that max exit velo up. So yeah, I think both of these guys are Crone and then Grichuk here again. That rolling expected WOBA has been going up recently. So yeah, I think getting into contention too also helps players kind of get back into things. It's like, okay, we're going, instead of just playing out these last 2 months of the season, focus on individual stuff. It's like, okay, we can make the playoffs. We can go out and we can do something here, and it's not just worrying about, okay, what my at bats is worrying about, okay, what's going on around me, let's make sure I can do it to help the team win, and kind of helps them lock in a bit more.
Somebody that I want to ask you about, kind of a show favorite. He was traded today, which means we get to talk about him more. Good old Dick Mountain.
Yes.
Rich Hill. Him and Mariners legend Ji-Man Choi were traded to the San Diego Padres today from Pittsburgh. Rich Hill has had a very interesting year. Overall, he's not very good. He's an older, like, back-end starter. Like, he's going to be their number 5 starter, that type of thing. Like, you can't expect the world from him, but I mean, his name's literally, it's Rich Hill, but it's Dick Mountain, which just makes it fun in of itself. I can't admit, this doesn't boost Rich Hill's value for me any, but Ji-Man Choi becomes interesting for me because he's been a little bit of an afterthought. I know he was decent in Tampa Bay, not like blowing anybody out of the water, but he was decent. And now he moves to a place in San Diego where a lot of these kind of afterthought guys have gone to and kind of, I don't want to say had resurgence. Like Gary Sanchez went there and all of a sudden he was hitting dingers. Everybody saw what Matt Carpenter did last year when he went to San Diego, hitting dingers. Nelson Cruz even had his moment where he went out there and he was hitting dingers. Ji-Man Choi this year has a 25.5% barrel rate on the season. I mean, it's a very small sample size, so take that how you want. It's 23 games, but a 25.5% barrel rate. Average exit velocity is almost 94 miles an hour, and he has a 60% hard hit rate. 205 batting average, 262 expected batting average. I, honest to God, think that there could be some value in Ji-Man Choi for the rest of the year because he's been so down the waiver wire list, so not owned in any leagues this year. If he can get some kind of consistent at-bats in San Diego, I mean, even if he gets Matt Carpenter level at-bats in San Diego, Ji-Man Choi gets interesting. You don't have a 25.5% barrel rate by accident. Last year, he had a 12% barrel rate, which was pretty good. And I mean, he hit 11 home runs in 113 games. He's not going to hit 40 home runs, but he's good. Am I the only one that's this excited about Ji-Man Choi, or is this just kind of a me thing?
Yeah, but looking at since he's returned from his Achilles injury, he started the year off pretty bad. But since returning on July 7th, he is 11 for 41, 4 home runs, 3 doubles, 9 RBIs, 12 strikeouts. Not great for points leagues. Hitting 268, OPS of 930. But yeah, that's 4 home runs in 10 starts, 14 games. Yeah, he should be getting more playing time as the Padres DH most likely. So yeah, he's rostered in 1% of Yahoo leagues. I thought for good reason, but looking at those numbers, the barrel rate and whatnot, maybe he is worth a look in those deeper leagues, or if you're looking for some power. And yeah, I like Rich Hill. I think Rich Hill going from the NL Central with the Pirates, who have completely fallen off since their hot start, to the Padres, who aren't great themselves, but I think they're more capable of streaming for wins with Rich Hill if you're wanting to do that, because like Rich Hill's not someone you can count on to get a bunch of strikeouts. Sometimes he will, but sometimes he'll throw 7 innings and only strike out 2. But he's consistent. He's never going to go out and wow people, but he'll give up 2 or 3 runs, 5-6 innings. I think he's going to be more of a matchup play the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Matchup play is probably a good way to look at him. And now the moment I've been waiting for. I got to go in on the Mariners real quick. I'm not going to go in on the Mariners. I got to talk the Mariners because they actually did make a real trade. They traded Paul Sewald to the Arizona Diamondbacks for Dominic Canzone, Josh Rojas, and Ryan Bliss, minor leaguer. First of all, I think this is huge for Paul Sewald. I love Paul Sewald. He's an excellent closer. The Mariners had to do what they had to do because at the end of the day, he's a 33-year-old reliever. Andres Munoz and Matt Brash still. So moving him for something makes sense. He now closes for an incredible team. I think I talked about this yesterday, but I got to say it again. He closes for an incredible team now. And I think he's going to be, he could be a top 5 closer the rest of the way out there in Arizona. Rojas, I think for Seattle has sneaky value. I need to see the Mariners lineup come out to really get a read on where they're going to bat him in the lineup and that sort of thing. I think Canzone should be in the lineup today too. He, I think, becomes the most exciting one because Mike Ford fucking sucks. So I think Canzone now should take the DH role because that's kind of what he is, DH first base. He becomes a sneaky one because he had some pretty good pop in the minor leagues. I think he should be on people's radar. I wouldn't say pick him up right now, but I think he should be on people's fantasy radar. In 15-team or deeper leagues, I think he could be owned. And then somebody like Teoscar Hernandez stayed with the Mariners. Very surprising. He was shot very heavily. What I read was that, obviously, people weren't giving up much for hitters this year. Pitchers were what everybody was after. And I read that the Mariners weren't able to get an offer that was much better than a compensatory pick. And so they elected to just keep Teoscar Hernandez. I think he may have a little lesser role moving forward, just because his defense has actually been that bad that he should be relegated to DH duties. Now, if he splits those with Canzone moving forward, that would be interesting. I think Cade Marlowe is here to stay in the outfield. Shout out Cade Marlowe's mom. She actually just followed me on Twitter like 2 minutes ago while we're recording this. So if you're seeing this live, I appreciate the follow. Everybody else should go follow me as well and follow the show at Fake Baseball. But anyways, I think there's a lot of value in those players that the Mariners received from Arizona. I think it's very overlooked because everybody sees Paul Sewald, all-star closer, was traded for a bunch of guys that are kind of a who to a lot of people. But when you look deeper, Rojas in 2021 and 2022 was fantasy relevant. He had good seasons. I did have him inside my top 15. I think I had him in my top 15 middle infielders coming into this year. He started out really hot and then struggled and got sent down. So that backfired a little bit, but there's promise there with somebody like Rojas. And Canzone could hit 10 dingers for the rest of the year. 10, 15 dingers should be amazing. So keep an eye out for those Mariners players. I don't really know where I was going with that, but they needed to be touched on because they're guys that got traded that are going to be hitting in the major league lineup for the rest of the year. So
yeah,
they're fantasy relevant.
Absolutely. And you're the one to talk on them. You're the Mariners expert. So yeah, I'm just trying to look, make sure we didn't miss out on any trades. Paul DeJong to the Blue Jays. He's one of those guys that, hit 30 home runs in 2019 and then has hit like maybe 40 total since. So good news for Bo Bichette, though. He looks like he's not going to go on the IL. I had just traded him, so if he did, it wouldn't have been the worst thing. But yeah, good for the Blue Jays. But Paul DeJong maybe a guy there. I don't know if there's anything else guys can throw it in the chat while we're doing this before we close it out. Yeah, make sure, as Blake said, you follow us on Twitter at Fake Baseball, TikTok. Blake's been killing it. YouTube, you can search for us there. Our Twitter has a link tree in it with everything in it. Our Substack, fakebaseball.substack.com. Gonna try to do. I want to commit to daily, but maybe 2-3 times a week. Deep League streaming. Hoping to add more features on there as the season moves along. Let us know what you want to see on there. But yeah, I think there's no other real major trades we missed out on. I'm not sure if you have any top of mind.
I think that's about it. I don't think Luis Urias was traded to Boston.
To Boston, yeah.
That's not anything crazy for me. he was a top prospect guy that hasn't really panned out. So I don't think there's a ton of value there. And obviously Trevor Story comes back soon, and Adalberto Mondesi is probably going to come back at some point as well. So then you start to wonder where the hell is Urias going to play. So yeah, not the biggest fan of that one. Kike Hernandez got traded. I don't think he has a lot of value for the rest of the year. Who else was it that got traded? Jack Flaherty.
Jack Flaherty to the O's.
Yeah,
good for the O's. Honestly,
they needed to do that. I think his value goes up for the rest of the year, playing for a much better team. And if Dean Kremer could have a 4.5 ERA,
I love Dean Kremer.
Like he was leading the league in wins at one point. If he can do that, Jack Flaherty can definitely do that for the rest of the way. So I think this is a big boost to his value.
Do you have a eulogy for Colton Wong, who has been designated for assignment for his time in Seattle?
Colton, it's been fun. The hype was there when you came in. You came in with the good vibes. You were all about Seattle when you first got traded to us, and we were here for it. We loved it. You started out slow, and we all had hope, and you literally just ended slow as well. It never got better. So I hate to see you go, but I'm not going to miss you. I hope you do end up in Boston, where they said you may be getting traded to. But as far as in Seattle, God, it sounds terrible to say, but I think you're going to end up as one of those guys that people forgot you played for the Mariners because it was just not good. So adios, Colton. Have a good one.
It wasn't good. It wasn't long, but it certainly was a time for Colton Wong in Seattle.
Dude, he was one of our big guys that we got in the offseason.
I remember
he lost his job.
Traded what, Winker for him, or
and
right?
He lost his starting job in like 4 weeks. That's how long it took him to lose his starting job, and we didn't have another second baseman.
Jesse Winker is worse. Colton Wong at least has 2 home runs this year. Winker only has 1. Both hitting below 200. What a trade for those guys.
I know, and Abraham Toro went to Milwaukee too, who also I don't like Abraham Toro. Also one of my least favorite Mariners of all time. But make sure you guys do follow us on YouTube and everywhere. Twitter, YouTube is Fake Baseball Money. TikTok, Fake Baseball Money. Twitter is at Fake Baseball. We said it last show, and I'm going to say it again. When it comes to podcast growing, one of the things that helps the most is you guys hitting the follow button on whatever platform it is that you listen. We don't ask for much, but if you guys just hit that follow button, that is actually what helps us rise up in the podcast rankings and have more people around the world see us. And we work so hard on this. So if you guys could just hit that follow button, we would greatly appreciate it. And you guys can catch me on Twitter. Hit me with all your fantasy questions at Buhlockay, BUHHLOCKAYE.
And you can follow me on Twitter at RGilbertSOP.
And we'll catch you guys next time.
See ya.